Thanks for joining us this afternoon. The second from the last session, so I appreciate it's getting a little later in the day, and quite a few people have have opted out of this session. I'm joined here today with quite a full panel of experts in their fields. Today's discussion is to talk about data center design and the build process in the UAE and what challenges we face associated with the global impacts and in vendors, products, the impact of AI and all of those challenges we have currently here in the Middle East. So I'll kick off by introducing everyone and let them say a couple words for themselves. So myself, I'm Alistair Davis. I work for a company called Black and White Engineering. We're an engineering consultancy specializing within data centers. We have offices here in the Middle East as well across as APAC and Europe. I'll pass across to RC.
Yeah, thank you. Very good afternoon to everyone. My name is Ramachandra, and I head the design for data centers in a company called Larsen & Toubro. And we are one of the largest EPC and the large company in India for construction, and we are moved into Middle East. And I represent them from a data center for a long time in my personal experience, but with L&T about 3 years, and prior to that I was with Schneider. Thank you, and I'm based in Dubai. Thank you.
Yeah, Jan Neuenfeld, Project Director from Turner & Townsend. We are one of the largest project management consultancy in the world, part of the CBRE group. Here in the region we have 1,000 consultants. In KSA we reached now 500. The data center business is growing, and we are 50, 60 specialized people only in data centers. Stefan?
Yes, Stefan Zimmermann. I work for Pure Data Center Group, and as Campus Delivery Director, I'm looking after the expansion in the GCC and Asia region. And we just opened our first data center in Abu Dhabi earlier this year and handed it over as well to our customer in time.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Somen Mathur. I am the head of the engineering for DataVolt. DataVolt is a relatively new entrant in this space, but we are quite, we had a lot of infrastructure. As a group, we have a large infrastructure presence in the region. We are developing data centers in Saudi Arabia. We are also developing data centers in Central Asia, started a project in Uzbekistan. L&T has been the PC for the project. Yeah, and we are developing quite a large campuses, AI campus, AI factories in Saudi with a key focus on sustainability.
Good afternoon, I'm Rishit Padalia. I'm Senior Vice President for Bureau Veritas Primary Integration. We are the data center vertical arm for Bureau Veritas, focusing on mission critical facilities. We basically do the third-party QA/QC testing and commissioning, and we have been delivering services right from the inception of the modern data centers. We have been here since 20 plus years, working with hyperscalers, co-locators right across the globe, from North America to Auckland, and over here in GCC, we have been very active in Middle East, which is the Dubai, Abu Dhabi, as well as Saudi Arabia. So these are our fast-moving regions. Thank you.
Thank you, panel. We'll kick off with the first question, and I'm going to put this to yourself, Stefan. Given the rising cost of land, labor, and materials, what is the case for building data centers here? Like you said, your new data center in Abu Dhabi. What's driven you to sort of expand in the Middle East region?
So yeah, I mean, in the Middle East, the driver of data centers is at the moment government-driven, and huge announcements came around to be on the forefront of AI. I think that's a big driver in the region for building new capacity, bringing capacity online. Beside that one, of course, there's also enterprise requirements for cloud services, which is a growing demand in the region, with a lot of companies and expansions going on in the UAE and in KSA and so on. So I think that's definitely a big driver in relation to costs and other things. With the scale comes more competitiveness, and this puts definitely pressure on the supply chain to be more efficient, looking for innovative ways to build data centers. and mainly also to driving a time-to-market strategy to be faster in delivering data centers with the current demand.
Thanks, Stefan. Soman, again, being a developer and developing here in Saudi and elsewhere, what is your take on that?
See, I think there are a couple of things, more than a couple of things which are driving. So, of course, one is the government reforms and the focus on infrastructure, especially around the AI, right? That is driving the growth to a large extent. Second thing, if you look at the geography, it is a strategic location. It services 3 continents. Connectivity-wise, it is extremely well connected, both from the eastern side and on the western side, through subsea cables. That drives growth. The power availability as compared to the other continents is better in the region. The cost of power is attractive, right? We get, there is availability of power and at a relatively better price point. And on top of it, the power availability here in the region is green, sustainable, right? Which is again driving the growth of the data center. If you look at the commercial aspect, the cost of finance is very, very attractive in the region. So these are also some of the factors other than the just the demand, which are driving which are behind the driving force for the data center. And I see this really picking up in future.
Thanks for that. Opening it up to sort of the wider team. Jan, do you have any, obviously TNT, massive global presence, project management, cost consultant. Any thoughts as well?
Yeah, I think the geopolitical situation here is perfect to serve Africa, Europe, and the Far East. You can run your applications live and serve the 3 continents. So this is the biggest advantage here. And the African market will be the next big market in the future. And I think the Middle East is the right place to serve. North America, Europe is all far away. So it's geopolitical and the region is stable.
100%. So they're sort of the positives of obviously building here in the Middle East. There's also challenges as what this topic's about. You know, one for you again, Jan, just for where you sit and what you see day to day. You know, how do you see the global challenges affecting supply? You know, the sustainability pressure, compliance requirements, you know, shaping the DC projects in this region.
Yeah, in the region, yeah, the supply chain is not much sure. It's all a blue ocean. The companies are all coming down. They start to build up their networks. They start to build their offices. Everyone is opening new offices here, but you don't have the majority as what you have in Europe. It's difficult to grab in the oil and gas industry. They are somehow quite outside. Some areas, yes, you can do it. But the supply chain is the biggest challenge for me here in the region. Then the general, not contractor, the general, how you call it? Huh? The vendors, yeah, the general vendor management. So that you have only one, when you want to go to Caterpillar, for example, you don't go to Caterpillar, you have to go to their local agent, and this will drive up the cost and delivery times and all the things massively. So this has to be cleared also here in the region to get it easier. This I see as a massive engineering challenge.
I think from a EPC perspective, where we see a challenge right now, as you rightly said, there's no one OEM does everything. So they actually have to go to first or second level of detailing, and they just provide that particular part of the system. Where I come from, I can go to the first one company and get everything done. They have their own engineering team and solution team, including the execution at site. Now, what happens, like say, for me, like a customer like Somain or Pure DC, and they come and ask, I want X, Y, Z, then I need to be very sure where I'm going. But again, when I go to one OEM, it goes to multiple levels. That's one. Number two, the supply chain, definitely because of the geopolitical challenges and what goes in there, where it comes from, managing that in this region. Yes, it's a solvable challenge, but the point is, yes, it's another big, not a hurdle, but this is one homework we need to do as a EPC when we look at your timeline and the, if customer says, I want to build that into 17 months, 18 months, or less than that. So how do we do it? So these are the supply chain challenges. We need to work more than the design. You do it at the very early stage and look at the design, what comes into the high side, and then work on your plan and then go to the customer. It's very, very challenging, but it's solvable. That's how I see.
Rashid, just to get your thoughts as well, if we could, please, mate.
Again, I think from my perspective, challenges, Alistair, are mainly on the upcoming new technologies, right? It's also about the skill set in the region. So, for example, to cope up with the requirements of the hyperscalers, which is constantly changing and which is evolving. So, it's also important to adopt to those evolving technologies. Contractors here are obviously skilled. There is a traditional oil and gas industry which was very strong in this region, and there are a lot of skills which are transferable to data center sector and which is doable, but there are nuances where the talent or the skill set needs to be tuned to the DC requirement, which is more from the hyperscale requirement perspective. So I think certainly on those avenues, those challenges will be required to be met.
Thank you. I guess throwing in another one out there as well, expertise in the market, actually having, with the amount of growth that is expected within the Middle East, what's your thoughts on actually the available talent pool? Obviously, data center market has been very small, relatively so, in the Middle East over the last sort of 5 to 10 years. With the amount of growth that's anticipated, what do you see, in terms of expertise? Do you think we can make that work, or are we going to have major challenges?
No, I certainly feel very confident when you talk about this region, right? There is a big potential where this region has the capacity to attract talent pool. There are a lot of expats who are ready to move into the region as well. So initially you would see that you would have local resources, but a lot of extra expats traveling as well, living out of this region. So building up the capacity should not be a challenge, but at the same time, the requirement in terms of delivery, and especially in the AI captive data centers, is certainly where you would see that the demand and some of the projects that you would imagine, like earlier we used to talk of 2 megawatts, 4 megawatts pod. Now we have all of the sudden moved to, then we saw a phase of 30 megawatts, and then now everyone is talking 100 megawatts, and probably now the news are only gigawatts, right? So I think this is a big change that is happening in the market. So your megawatt size are growing quite aggressively. The expectation on delivery is quite stringent. So obviously I feel that there would be a big potential where capacity can be managed, but it's all about attracting the right talent pool, in my view. Training would be a big part of it, and training and upskilling would be a big part of it. Retention, again, massive from what we see. We are very human capital business from our perspective, and if you see, like, if we are not able to retain because everyone wants the same set of skill set, if businesses will not be able to retain right talent, then certainly that will be a big challenge in terms of continuity, because your contractors from one project to another, maybe the brand name is the same, but if the people on that project changes, then it's again reinventing the wheel. So lesson learned from your previous projects has to go to the next project. So those would be something that we'll have to take care of.
Thanks for that. Go on, Jen.
Yeah, I see it much more challenging with the talent in the region. When you look to Saudi Arabia, they want a Saudiization rate of 20%, 25%, and when you look to the UAE, I think has the same, Kuwait has the same, so you have to build a massive local talent pool. This is where I see the challenge, and there are big governmental-driven initiatives where they go to the Microsoft, to the Google, to the Amazons, say, hey, please come build training centers with us, build with us the workforce, what is required to maintain, operate in future this massive amount of data centers. This is where I see the real challenge here in the region for the talent.
I think one very important part, at least from a developer standpoint, it is not only just building it, right? It is also managing the life cycle, right? And operations is far more overwhelming because operations team have to live whatever commitments the customers, you've committed to the customer. And it won't get sorted out until and unless we look at development of talent. Talent will be pushed. Talent is scarce, right? So the focus has to be in development and a continuous development, right? As a contribution to the industry. So we as Data Vault, we have taken this initiative and we have partnered with universities, and we are going to a level where we are working with the universities, driving curriculum, all right, additional year or so, where we can teach them how to operate the infrastructure and produce resources who are, fully ready to be deployed. It's not just for us, but for the industry. So I think that's something which we really need to look at if this demand has to be fulfilled.
I would agree with you 100%. Operations is where the legacy resource will be required, because obviously black and white like myself can design it, it can be built, but then that team's done. It needs to be carried on, and it needs to be ran, and without that knowledge, it's going to fail.
Here, so I was listening to the previous panel here. We were talking about monitoring and the DCIM facility and everything. So they get tons and tons of data and try to make something useful, meaningful for the management to see where you're spending. But there are certain predictive analysis. But I come from a company where Schneider, so they did a lot of things. But at the end of the day, let's not forget humans have to be there to do certain operations. Now, on-site training for a data center, I'm sure it's going to be very expensive if someone has to do it. But again, it's a very thin line where you need to walk. I think Data Vault, I remember you saying that you have done something in the KSA and you're doing some university. So as L&T in India, so we have EduTech as a vertical. So we do tell them as a part of the curriculum, they'll certify themselves into operations and management. But yes, at the end of the day, humans are required, and one switch, wrong one, going off from a green to black, right? So from a green data center. So I guess you will have all tools and tackles, but you need to have right people to work. Very scarcity in terms of people being available, but you need to churn in the best among the available group. So I only wanted to say that's tools, tackle, but people being there, the right one, the right place. Yes, it is the ultimate thing to do.
Yeah, so I agree completely with you. It's can just go through education to bring more talent on board. I think the constraint is the time scale, because with all the big announcements on how many gigawatts of data centers you want to deploy in this region, there's not enough time to educate people, and you cannot also not start a full campus with apprentices. It doesn't work. So you need to have experienced people to run and build your data center, and that will be, I think, a big challenge over the next couple of years.
Thank you. Well, quite a discussion point on that one. Available talent within the region.
This is the most important discussion today.
It is. And I guess that's why we're all here. Yeah. Next question. With the Gulf nations racing to attract hyperscalers, what unique differentiators do you see from those different regions that will help define long-term data hubs? Quite an open question there. If I first, RC, so if I may, just from a design.
Okay. Last 1 year I've been here looking at the market, and I was following Middle East and the Southeast as well. Definitely Southeast has its own challenges and pluses. When I looked at the Middle East and MENA region as such, we wanted to be in Middle East. I see the UAE and KSA and Qatar to an extent very different from a strategic perspective. UAE has got already kind of they're graduated from a data center perspective when they decide to do something, and they have actually been doing it, building it, testing it, commissioned and given to the customer. And they are going vertical, right? And I see the same thing in Riyadh. I've just come this morning. I've been visiting KSA to understand what's going on and talk to people and customers and consultants. So it's a very different way. They have a long-term strategies, big things coming up in terms of the announcements. I'm sure it'll get into the reality as well. In these two, what I see is, as I think someone mentioned here, it's about how soon you get into the market. Time to market should be less. In my view, which I have seen in the last 1.5 years, it's time to capacity. how soon you build your capacity, right? Now, I've got a lot of challenges with some people sitting on this floor and also in the building saying that I need a data center for 2 megawatt, but it should take something else, which is AI. Now, how soon would you bring up to the capacity? It's no longer the time to market. Yes, it makes sense. That means you should be able to have that time to capacity. How soon can you give me that 40 megawatt or 10 megawatt? I guess that's where I see, but Qatar being there, you know, they have got their own way of doing things, and I've been working with a few customers there as well. But these two big things, definitely well matured in terms of design, build, construct, already running, and KSA is really ramping up so fast. And I'm sure the numbers which have been there in the books will definitely come on the papers and onto the fold as well. So that's where I see as a challenge in this.
Stefan, I can see you itching to.
No, it's fine. Yeah, so I think the competitive between the different GCC countries, I think partially is there from an AI perspective potentially because you can shift things around. But there's other big player point in the part is data sovereignty, which drives growth in each of the countries. So yes, there is a competition going on, but I think to which extent will the future will tell. Potentially one point is that different countries have different price tags on all CapEx requirements in the data center industry, while I think KSA is at the moment a little bit up on the price tag with a lot of import and quite expensive labor costs. So this may have an impact at the end where things getting deployed, because at the end CapEx drives rent and other things, and so this will have an impact on where load gets.
But in terms of operational-wise, energy being probably the most expensive, would KSA have an advantage there? Your thoughts?
From an energy price perspective, yes.
Very good. So just to open that to the wider team as well, Rashid, what's your take?
Again, it's back to the same business on the topic that we discussed previously, right? It's mainly the region that would be most successful is where they can deliver. I think it's more important that you need to have control over your supply chain. The region which will be able to have control over supply chain, who would be in a position to have alternative solutions, if I have to put it that way. Maybe you need multiple vendors to support you, and there is a global demand as well. So one, from my perspective, obviously it's control on the supply chain. If you can manage that, because everyone wants the same set of equipments. That's one. Second, obviously with everything that we are seeing today, which is more from the macroeconomic environment perspective, the tariffs and everything that we are seeing globally, it has a different impact. We are in a very volatile world today where we don't know who is going to get what tariff and sanctions or whatever, right? And then obviously the tensions on the geopolitical side as well. So all these will certainly be one of the deciders on the hyperscalers' investment strategy, if I have to put it that way. And certainly that would be also where people will be wanting to decide where they want to go. So all these factors, and then I think I touched base previously on the human capital and the skill set there. So it's back to the same thing, delivery and understanding of the requirements of the tenants.
I've got a few points to put across here. See, in this region as a whole, KSA and UAE, from the supply chain perspective, anyway, we discussed about it, but from a design point of view, maybe the per unit cost, I come from L&T and we build a lot of renewable projects, and we are transmission and distribution to an extent. Maybe you see a very less cost in what you get in your position, in your place. But the point is, when you use that, you put together a big data centers and you have a design challenges from a temperature perspective. I'm sure Suman will agree, and I'm sure you will agree as well. We have to design the systems at 50 degrees, and so we put in more money into it, but again, there is an offset which we want to see from the power, what you use and what you pay, what comes into in your project office site, and then what you spend on your CapEx, right? And then you have a highly elevated capacities coming up. When you run the data centers, I hope AIs will absolutely take off from the day one, though it varies in terms of the loads profile. there has to be a better utilization to make sure that you get your efficiency paid in terms of OpEx. So the point is, maybe the price is less per unit on the power, but the design aspects when you put in, there will be more coming into the aspect of your high side equipment and raising everything +1 from what it is normal design locations. So that's where I see that it could be a difference in this region.
Thank you very much. Go on, Sermon, please.
One point which I wanted to bring, see on the positive side, right? There is also an effort for a lot of localization, which is now going into the industry. I think that's also going to bring the overall costs down, right? So it's just about the demand kicking in. Once the OEMs, they see the demands coming in, and once they see whatever announcements are happening, they are seeing the light of the day. There will be a lot of investment, and there's already a push from government in a lot of, like in KSA, they're driving a lot of localization, right? I think that's going to bring the overall cost down, which will make the proposition more attractive for hyperscalers to come in. So in addition to the lower tariffs on power side, availability of power, et cetera, the localization will also drive the decision making when we look at from a hyperscalers.
Thank you. Another one for you there, Sermon. Which design and construction innovations, such as modular construction, some of the sort of the standard things that are starting to creep into the industry, do you see most relevant here in the Middle East on the sort of the projects you're currently delivering?
In this region, what I've seen is there is a lot of focus on the pre-engineered or pre-engineered building construction, right? And there are a lot of OEMs who are also giving a lot of focus on packaging the skids. So that's the focus. And I would want to build on what RC said. It's about the capacity, right? Faster you develop, faster you get customers. And the modularization and the pre-engineered building construction is one area which is really mature to a fairly decent level in this part of the world.
Go on, Jan.
Yeah, and I think this region has a massive advantage in modularization. When I see all the refineries, when I was working in Kuwait, they bring half a refinery over the street, install it, make 3 welds, then it was done. So there, I think, is a lot of room in pre-construction. And back to the power, no? We have to get here the PoE down. No? When you looked in Europe and in the internet, you can see it, the Google Fleet has a PO of 1.07 on average over the year. When you look here, we can be happy when we had 1.3, 1.4. And this is 30% more power. Yes, the tariff has to be minimum 30% less, that you can take this disadvantage that you even can compare with Europe. So this is, for me, the big players in the region should come all together, start something like Design Excellence Center, and look how they can increase the white space temperature, how they can bring the things together, maybe more automated, that we come closer to the ambient cooling, no? that we get rid of this overheads for all the chillers. This I see the big challenge that this region will move forward. When we come over it, then this region is political from a position perfect, but this is a big disadvantage what we have to fix.
Stephen, maybe you would want to talk about it, because Pure, I know you've been doing
one point that says yes, modularization is a big part on the data center market general, not just here in the Middle East. It's everywhere, and this will definitely, I think, increase the time to market or time to capacity point in the future. The other point is, I think, where we're coming back to skilled workers and how are things getting built. I don't think that oil and gas companies will build in future data centers, because the price tag will obviously potentially not work. So you still have the traditional companies, and the awareness how a data center works and how you construct it to the right quality standard is, I think, the one big challenge. From an innovation perspective, I think contractors or even developers need to think more about collaboration, partnerships, building up transparency in your project, not just pure execution and procurement, to achieve a quality which is suitable for hyperscale customers at the end. So Lean construction management is one point, which is a big topic in the industry, but doesn't get applied or understood necessarily within the Middle East yet. So it's coming slowly, but that drives transparency forward and where you can deliver projects in time.
Thank you, Stefan. Just looking ahead, so obviously we're looking at the global impacts and trends for data centers in this region, but looking ahead, what key technologies do you see coming into the designs of data centers, both in the short, medium, and long term? I guess, Rashid, what's your thoughts? Like coming from Bureau Veritas and obviously having more of a wider view.
Yeah, I think what we are seeing is data centers are more and more looking at liquid cooling. From the technology perspective, we are on the MEP side of things. So obviously from our perspective, we see that your future data centers, obviously AI data centers will be liquid cooling. And this also pretty much ties in with the sustainability goals that these regions have announced, like UAE would want to be carbon neutral by 2050. I think KSA has a different 2030 plan, which is again all linked to sustainability, and technological changes like liquid cooling will certainly help them getting there. So obviously that's a big change that we see. Yeah.
Thank you. Jan, what are you seeing in terms of sort of future technology in projects that you think might see, like battery energy storage systems, looking at potentially fuel cells maybe down the line, even further afield, small modular reactors, SMRs? What's your take on that? Obviously, it's starting to take off elsewhere. You can see a lot of announcements in the US, a lot of deployment, or starting to deploy in Europe as well.
Yeah, Europe will be a bit challenging with SMRs. When I look to Germany or so, there are some other different hurdles. But in the Middle East, I think the negotiations are ongoing in the background for SMRs. But when you go in these technologies, you have the US, and US has to be willing to export and give the export license to the countries and say, hey, we see them safe enough to give them SMRs. So the first fuel cell off-grid data centers are operating in Texas. So this is a model what we can implement easy in the region. When you look to KSA and NEOM, they built the biggest hydrogen factory in the world. So cheap, renewable hydrogen will be within the next years available in the region. And solar. So yes, it's possible. And the big challenges, I think, I don't know if we stick with the standard data centers what we have at the moment. Did we keep the IBM rack, what was developed in the 1950s, or we move to a newer, more advanced technology, what is fitting better for a data center? And what is with quantum computing? Maybe in 2 years there will be a big shift over to quantum computer and all the legacy stuff what we are doing now.
Change, and I think that's one thing we can be certain of in this industry is change. It's changed for the last 10 years, and it looks like it's going to change even more over the next 10 years. Just, I guess, coming to you, Stefan, in terms of Pure and what they do and how they deliver. What's your, what do you see coming through potentially?
On the technology side, I mean, for the Middle East, it's a bit challenging because of the low energy price to compete with an SMR or with even with fuel cells to compete to the normal grid prices is challenging. However, I think on the long term, it becomes a topic of how big data centers will be and where they will be located to avoid huge kilometers of transmission. Maybe it becomes an option to deploy such kind of technology. I think it's not yet there, but with the power topic at the right place, it may become there in future.
Sorry, Jan, go on.
Yes, because I disagree a bit with the big energy price and that we will be here not working from renewable energies. When you look to the policies from the big hyperscalers like Google, they say they want 100% carbon-free energy, so the Middle East has to deliver. So they have to find a way forward when they want to supply for this type of customers.
Fair point, yes, that's true, but the question is, does it come from the data center developer or comes it from the grid? There's the overall drive to net zero 2050, I think, in the UAE, which plays a big role. And as long as this is for the same price available, I think developers will not take the move, besides it's specifically driven from a customer, potentially.
Simon, please.
See, from my perspective, right, the technology should help in integrating, right? It is not just one tech compared to the other tech. Right? The approach should be, because the scale is getting bigger and bigger, and there is enough, so this scale offers a position to integrate, right? So if you look at integrating renewable water, the water temperature also is conducive, right? So we can actually convert the disadvantages to advantages. For example, water temperature in Red Sea, it's very conducive for the liquid cooling, what gentleman was talking about. So if we are able to integrate this all together, integration of water, integration of solar, integration of wind, and integration of hydrogen development during the peak, which offsets the portion of time when the solar or wind is not available. This integration will help the data center operators to be more sustainable and will bring down the cost of compute to a reasonable.
Just to get on to what you're saying, so man, does it mean that we will see data centers with no batteries? Because we're talking about sustainable. That's one part nobody really want to touch upon, because it's lead, pure lead, or it's nickel, or whatever it is. But still, if with all the energy mix, if we're able to hold the grid to an extent where there's a change was happening from your, the hydrogen fuel cells or solar or various other things, wind, still holding that 50 hertz or 60 hertz and the waveform and 400 volts or 415 or whatever. If you're able to hold that as a frequency, then you may be able to eliminate and then bring up much sustainable future.
Of course,
and
maybe,
features.
Yeah, maybe the infrastructure will completely change. Yeah. It may not look the way it is looking today, right? Maybe we are with this integration, with grid integration and the renewable integration. There will be a time when we will eliminate the need of a UPS system, from the entire chain.
Just to, sorry, can I take a minute? So, just to you, Stephen, and maybe Somen, you are talking to the end users, and probably Stephen also has got. You've been in your previous. Is there anything which is in near future we see that what we talk about today, the energy mix and holding it together, is it really going to be a possibility, or still going to be on the books of engineering documents?
Yeah, so on the battery side, I'm not 100% sure about that, because you can't just switch off randomly computers, right? So I think they will stay a bit.
Power transitioning, yes.
Yes.
Battery will need it for transitioning the
Exactly.
power. Yes.
But from a redundancy perspective, for example, do you need generators in the future? Because you can easily switch workloads from one data center to another one and control driving down a data center on batteries. These kind of opportunities are there, and I think the market is slowly moving already on that one, potentially not yet so fast and everywhere on isolated things, but I think there's things coming in the future.
Absolutely, and this size and the scale will give us an opportunity to look beyond and out of the box.
Yep. I think the size from the paper to the land is more important, and time to market plus capacity. I guess that's how it is.
Thank you. Conscious we've only got 7 minutes left of this panel, and to allow a couple of minutes of questions at the end, I'll go to the last question. With the growth of IT demand in the region, what do you believe are the greatest challenges for this region to deliver? I know we've touched on a few of them already, but just to round that off as a final, if I start with yourself, Rashid.
Again, from the challenge perspective, it's in my view, if I have to put it, one single word is obviously skill sets is where I would leave it at it, right? So certainly I feel that there are many more challenges in terms of what everyone has added over here, but I think we need to start thinking as you were mentioning, outside the box, and there has been historical ways of doing data centers where people were not very comfortable changing in the methodology or the designs or anything, right? So they're very comfortable, okay, this works over here, we'll continue to work in the similar fashion. And there was a consistency there, but I think the entire supply chain will have to come together to come up with a very innovative solution in order to meet the capacity demand. Otherwise, I think there is a demand, but there won't be enough supply possible because there won't be a solution.
Thank you. So,
See, the price at which we are building today, right? That has to come down. If we compare to mature markets, not going to the US, that's a very different market. But even if you look at Asian market, the price at which we built is relatively much lower compared to this region. Of course, when we bring in scale, when we bring localization, that will get addressed. But today, the biggest challenge is to build at that price point. That has to come down.
Yeah, I agree completely. The price tags in the Middle East is still very high, and this needs to come down. Question is how? Because a lot of, as mentioned before by Jan, is supply chain isn't set up in the right way. Everybody takes the margin of everything, even potentially even government taxes, import taxes, and so on, shipping costs from Europe, which is a topic on the supply chain that more manufacturing needs to take place in the region for equipment, right? So that's definitely one constraint. The other constraint is definitely the skilled workforce, which is required to build and operate a data center. If this doesn't get resolved, more and more incidents will happen, unsatisfied customers, and so on. So skill sets is a big topic.
thank you.
Yeah, I can only agree with the previous one. And I think I would not say only development cost or building cost, I would say the entire lifetime cost for a data center has to come down here in the region, because at the end nobody is looking when you pay premium for building, but you will get over the years the money back for operation. It's an advantage, then the model will work. But the operation cost I expect will be also quite high due to the environmental challenges what we have. So the region here should push forward robots in the white space, taking out the people, increase the temperatures in the white space, and make it much more efficient. This will be the challenge here, but I see also an advantage, because the governments and the people are willing to invest the money and do it and try it.
Thank you, Jan. Go on, RC.
Yeah, I think definitely the cost for build has to be brought down. I think it's and I'm as a GC or as an EPC company, we have major challenges to meet.
He's the one getting beaten up every time, so of course.
Obviously, the team from Pure and Datavault would definitely believe that's the case.
So there are very few. I mean, there are many like these gentlemen, and definitely. I mean, that's the need of the hour, and we need to work, and we are also finding various ways and means of partnering with them, not just looking at them as a vendor, kind of thing. But again, it depends on how well we are standardizing our pods and selections, and it becomes a little easier for them to manufacture. Probably not go back to drawing boards and change everything. So this is one. Cost is something which is definitely. And second thing, I guess, the kind of investments which are announced in the US recently by Meta and various other people. Geopolitically, I think there are a lot of announcements have happened. As I said, again, I'm not going to touch back completely what I spoke in the beginning, but definitely there has to be certain high-level understanding that moves certain things out of a bigger chunk to a larger portion out to somewhere else. And this, I don't know how far it's going to be possible by companies like you, bringing in the big guys there, Google's or Meta or whoever. But the point is that work is still there, and that's how we talk about huge AI factories. Otherwise, the learning might happen big in the US or China, but again, that's the massive thing. Learning is one, which is the LLMs and various other things. That's the guzzler. That's what the main chunk is all about we're talking today. If it remains there in those two geographies, probably then again at a very high level, at the political level, it needs to be settled what data remains where and how much of learning will happen. Bringing inference here alone will be just middle portion of AI. Some gentlemen talked about saying that AI is there, but still we are not up to that level of AI in this region. So these are the two main challenges. Apart from that, skill sets, I think we need to develop. It's a continuous process. Plus, again, bringing the best in the industry which cost little money, but yes, cost per megawatt has to be driven down. Yeah, that's what I believe. That's where the challenges are for the region.
Thank you. We've got 1 minute left, so I guess just opening any questions to the floor before we get kicked off the stage. So if anybody has any questions for the team, for the panel.
Very, very silent audience. They heard everything, I guess. Everything is clear.
They're happy. Well, if not, obviously, as we step off, please grab us if you have any specific queries. If not, thank you, panel, for joining.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Much appreciated. Thank